Good evening to everyone. We are going to discuss the laws of meat and dairy, and today we will speak about a ladle, that is meat ladle, that was inserted into a dairy dish. Dairy dish that is hot. So meat ladle inserted into a dairy hot dish. If the ladle was used in the last 24 hours, this is an important concept to remember. There's a big difference if it was used within the 24 hours or not. But in case that it was used in the last 24 hours for fleishik dish, fleishik food that is hot, you need, and now it's inserted into a dairy dish. So you have to measure, or you have to estimate, if the dairy dish that now is dealing with an intruder of meat ladle, you have to estimate 60 times the amount of the part of the ladle that was inserted into the pot, into the dairy pot. So I have a ladle here, thanks to Lipa for providing it. The ladle, let's say that this ladle is fleishik ladle, was used in the last 24 hours to mix meat, and it was inserted up to here. It was inserted into a dairy hot dish. So I have to make sure that there is 60 times the amount in the dairy dish to nullify the intruder, to nullify this part of the ladle that was inserted. And the halacha is, if there is 60 times the amount, you're allowed to eat the dish, and you're allowed to continue using the dairy pot, but the ladle itself, you have to kosher. This ladle you have to kosher before you want to use it again. But if there isn't 60 times the amount, then you're stuck. You can't eat the dish. You're not allowed to eat the dairy dish. And the spoon and the pot, you have to kosher before you want to use them again. So that's scenario number one, that the spoon, the ladle, was used in the last 24 hours for meat that was hot, and it was inserted into a dairy dish that is hot. So again, you have to make 60 times the amount of the intruder, at least the area that was inserted. And if there is 60 times the amount, you're allowed to eat the food, you're allowed to eat the dish, you're allowed to continue using the pot. The ladle needs to be koshered. Now, if the spoon was not used in the last 24 hours, you used it, let's say, 48 hours for meat, the dish is, you're allowed to eat the dish, the dairy dish, but you need to kosher the spoon, regardless if it was used last in a week, maybe a week ago. But it's a fleishik ladle, so you have to kosher the ladle, because that ladle has within it, it absorbed the flavor of meat and dairy. It has within it meat because it's a meat ladle, and now it was inserted into a milchik dish, so it has both flavors in it. So you have to kosher it. The pot, milchik pot, you don't have to kosher. You're allowed to continue using it, because the flavor that is in this ladle, since it was used in, let's say, 48 hours, not within the 24 hours, it's called tam pogum, blemished flavor, and it does not prohibit the dish and the utensil. And similarly, if it's vice versa, meaning that you had a milchik ladle that was inserted into a fleishik hot dish, meat dish that is hot, that the law is always goes by this rule, whether it was used in the last 24 hours for milchik, for dairy that was hot, and when you used it, the law of the dish depends if there is 60 times or not. Meaning, once it was inserted, you have to check if there is 60 times. Regardless, we see in all scenarios you have to kosher the ladle. The ladle is the intruder that went into from meat to dairy. That always have to be koshered. So summarizing this halacha, we have a ladle that is fleshik that goes into a dairy dish, and we're dealing with a case that it's hot. Both of them were used for hot dish. The meat was hot, the dairy was hot. We have to make sure that there is 60 times the amount that was inserted. This is a ladle, say it was up to here that was inserted. I have to have 60 times the amount of dairy in the pot. And then the food is kosher, the pot is kosher, just the ladle needs to be koshered. If it was not used in the last 24 hours, I don't have to have the 60 times the amount. I only have to kosher the ladle. The food is kosher. The food is kosher. The pot is kosher. Why? Because it's called tam pogum. It's a blemished flavor. It's not enhancing the dish. And the same law applies to if it was vice versa. A dairy ladle that was inserted into a fleshy pot. So this is the halacha. We'll continue with another Tanya video and Parsha and Yaakov. Stick with us. We'll see you soon.